Welcome back, Presence Network. Mark here. um, I wanted to continue a conversation about concepts. I talked a little bit about biblical writings and other writings, philosophers, different religions, different backgrounds. Um, Full disclosure, I tend to lean towards um, biblical understanding. I think there are some undeniable truths in the Bible. I definitely believe there's a higher power. But I also want to speak to the everyday person who just has they're waking up every day trying to deal with life. um, I am not necessarily well spoken, but my heart is to, and the heart of the Presence Network, those who have teamed up with me, we really want to affect change in each individual, in each individual's life. Those people that cross our paths, and you also will have people cross your path. But a sick person can't help someone. So let's get you healthy. Let's get you well so that you can pass it forward. Um, I wanted to start off by saying something as I glance at my notes here. I keep just enough notes to be able to articulate what I really want to say. And then sometimes my brain moves so fast that I just can't, I can't, I can't place it all in order. Can't slow down enough to get it out right. So forgive me for looking down once in a while, but um, I want to explain a little bit about myself and how I work. And I want to pass it on to you because I believe it'll be helpful in your journey to discover truth and even God or a higher power. Um, I talked last time about how some things are just undeniable. If I am looking at, I don't know, the color of a house, and I'm walking by and someone looks at me and says, "Look at that nice, pretty green house," and my eyes are seeing a house that's painted brown. Um, I'm sorry, that's an undeniable truth that house is brown. I see it with my own two eyes, and just because you say it's green, that won't compute with me. Um, that's kind of how I think. That's how I kind of view the world, including the things that I read in the Bible or other writings, because I have done some study on some other writings, and quite frankly, they're beneficial to my life. But truth is what we're trying to get to here. So part of your ability moving forward to discover what truth is you kind of have to know how you yourself work. I'm the kind of person that, and quite frankly, I believe everyone can be this way. I've had some arguments with some friends of mine who are in leadership roles. Some of us just believe that, hey, different people are different. And while I believe there's some truth to that, um, I think there's some universal things. I think if I have the ability to do something, anyone can do it. Most of what we have in our lives are learned behaviors. A psychologist many times didn't become a psychologist unless he went to college and took some classes to learn how to become a psychologist, which begs a whole nother question is, are you called to be a psychologist, or are you just pursuing a career? Are you just regurgitating something that you were taught? Or do you really have a psychologist within you? Just a quick thought. But I'm the kind of person that if you give me something mechanical and I take it apart, I can kind of figure out how to fix it. I don't need to know the names of the parts. I don't need to know, the name of the part that I need. I don't even need to know the names of the tools that I need to work on it, but I do need the tools. I can look at a screwdriver at the end of that screwdriver and go, okay, it's straight up and down, which is a regular screwdriver, and it's got to go in the head of that screw. Or I see a little cross and I look at my flat screwdriver and go, that ain't going to fit in there. It just won't. That is kind of what I mean. That's the concept of a universal truth. I don't need someone to tell me that flat screwdriver is not going to fit into a cross with what we call Phillips head screw head. It won't fit. I can't have someone telling me that a brown house is green and have me believe that, because there's something in me that can see the house is brown. It's not green. Someone can give me a whole lecture on my truck and how dirty it is. There's a little mud spot over here, and I can see that there's a piece of a pine needle stuck in your windshield. I don't need you to tell me that. I can look at the truck and see that that's true. I don't need someone to point out that it's true. One of the things that drives me crazy about news, especially local news, every Christmas they got to tell you how to put up Christmas lights safely. And, don't stand in a bucket of water while you're plugging in your Christmas lights. Well, I don't need you to tell me that. But we've created a society of dummies. I mean, when you continue to treat people like they're immature, like they can't figure it out for themselves, people tend to want to be dependent. They tend to want to be told what to do rather than just figure it out for themselves. So what I would like to encourage you to do today is find that inner thing within you that says, I can figure this out. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a process. That doesn't mean that you can't have good people in your life. And I know I spoke last time about being careful who you take advice from. If you want to learn how to become wealthy, I wouldn't go seek the advice of the guy standing on the street corner with the sign that says, we'll work for food. That guy doesn't know the first thing about managing finances or how to gain finances. If he did, he wouldn't be standing there on the street corner. So let's use a little common sense. Let's use a little just normal thinking when we make our decisions and when we pursue. This whole thing, at least what I want to offer you, is the ability to find truth, but you have to be a seeker. You can't be someone that's willing to sit on the couch and let other people do it for you. You have to decide to do it. The Bible writes about to much given, much is required. Well, look, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want more, you've got to put more in. You can't go to your bank account and draw out $100 unless you have first put in $100. So put something into what I'm saying. Put something into your journey and in your searching. I fully believe that there is a higher power, that there is a God, there's a creator. And one of the things that I think we fail to do when we go into a church setting, or if we want to sit down by ourselves and do a Bible study or dig into seeking God, is we forget to use the brain that the good Lord gave us. We depend on others to present to us what is true, and we end up creating a whole different reality, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about. If I'm raised to believe that, let's just, for an example, talk about people with blonde hair. If I grow up believing that people with blonde hair are mean, that they're bad, that they're going to mistreat you, and I'm shown one or two examples of a bad person who happens to have blonde hair, I will more than likely grow up creating my own truth, my own system of believing that if a blonde person walks up to me and wants to engage in a conversation, my guards are going to be up, my walls are going to be up, because I'm constantly looking at them through the eyes of the truth that got created in my upbringing. On the flip side, if I have experiences and I open my mind, key word, if I open my mind up to the idea that maybe I'm wrong, maybe, just maybe, people with blonde hair aren't so bad. So let me engage one of them. Let me get to know one of those blonde haired people. And I do that, and I start to engage with a blonde haired person. And all of a sudden, that blonde haired person starts being kind to me, starts helping me out with things. I noticed one day I got home and my lawn is mowed because the blonde haired person did it for me. All of the sudden, the things that I see with my eyes and my life experience with that blonde haired person is changed. So now you cannot convince me that all blonde haired people are bad people. And I know as a society we fall into this. I see it every day on the news. We hear something on the news and we just take it for gospel, and that's dangerous. Please don't do that. You have to be a seeker. You have to be the one to pursue truth, and you have to do it relentlessly. And again, look, there are some things that I am very firm on that are hardcore beliefs of mine that I have found to be true. Once you find a truth, do not let go of it. Cling to it with everything you have in you, because someone's always going to want to come along and destroy it. Don't allow that. Really don't know where to go from there except to say that in your journey of seeking truth, please open your mind. Please open your ability to experience things that you hadn't experienced before. Another thought that came to my mind is, when you go out to eat healthy food, one of the things about getting older is you start realizing, man, my body's different. I start eating things. Something crosses my mind. You know what? Every time I eat that, it does something to my system. Soda pop is one of the things for me. Soda, Dr. Pepper was my thing. I had to have a Dr. Pepper, and man, almost every hour I was guzzling those things. And yeah, I'm probably in my late 20s. I start noticing things in my body not functioning correctly. End up in the bathroom way too often. And the thought occurred to me that every time I have one of these darn sodas, something doesn't work right in my system. So the experience that I'm having tells me something's off. Don't need anyone to preach a sermon to me on it. I know by the experience that something isn't right while I'm drinking these sodas. So I start letting them go for a while. And man, right here is a good time for me to mention a problem in human nature, and that is overindulgence. You've probably heard the expression, all things in moderation. Human beings tend to overdo it in a lot of areas. There is no balance. And I want to encourage you today that balance is an absolute necessity if you're going to move forward in trying to find truth, trying to find a higher power, trying to find someone that is within you that can balance out all the nonsense. And again, this is all speaking to the peace and the joy and the freedom from anxiety and the freedom from stresses that we have in life. These are the goals. Everything that I'm talking about is trying to bring you down to that point. But anyway, getting back to my story, Dr. Pepper was something I had to do without. And I noticed that as I stopped drinking those, my system changed. I felt better. Now I can't even taste one. So here's a little example of something that you can, a concept that you can take a hold of, hopefully. Good, healthy food tastes terrible. It's like, why in the world, if this is supposed to be so healthy for me, why does it taste bad? And not only that, it's way more expensive than the bad stuff. Captain Crunch cereal costs half of what healthy cereal costs. And the healthy cereal tastes like cardboard, quite frankly. But here's something I've noticed. When I've allowed myself to simply follow after the truth being that healthy food is better for me, even though I don't feel it, I don't think it, I don't want it. And by the way, please don't forget your feelings will deceive you every time. Now that's different from an intuition. Feeling and intuition are two totally different things. We do have something that is very similar to feelings that we have within us, but it's really not a feeling. It's kind of that knowing that I spoke about earlier. There's something in us that just knows right from wrong. When I'm growing up, I remember hearing my mom and dad argue and hearing some of the yelling and screaming. And man, I didn't need anyone to tell me something's off here, something's wrong. That's an intuition. I grew up just knowing that wasn't right. And ironically, a lot of us in those situations, we end up turning out just like our parents. We yell and scream just like our mothers did or our fathers did, or we shut down like our dad does. And we, again, create our own new truth and reality instead of going back to that childhood and realizing, you know what, man, when I was a kid, I had it right. I knew right from wrong. And if we're not careful, we allow our surroundings and our atmosphere, our environments, our cultures to create a new truth for us. And that's never going to lead to any place good, because then you get entrenched in your own truth instead of the truth that belongs to God, instead of the actual truth. It's the greenhouse and the brown house. Is the house green because you believe it is, or is it actually brown and you just can't see it? But getting back to the healthy food thing, I look at the healthy food and I'm like, man, I can't do this. But I force myself to do it because I know it's good for my health. And as I went down that road of trying to eat healthier, I started noticing, you know what? Try this, and some of you have. You eat healthy for a while, you start acquiring a taste for the food. But then you go back and you try, like I did with the soda. If I go back and even taste a Dr. Pepper, I want to spit it out. I no longer have a taste for it. And this is exactly what we do in our journey in life. Our searching for spirituality or our closeness to God, or however you want to term it. I prefer the term walking with God. I want to walk with God because there has to be a standard of truth. There has to be a standard of believing, and I can't be the one to make that decision. I can't be the one to say this is true or that's true. I want to know what the actual truth is. And I know I'm kind of talking in circles, but it's really the only way I know how to communicate this. There is a connection between these little examples I'm giving you. The child that just knows something's off, and then going through the process of life and creating your own truth based on your experiences. Well, our experiences are leading us further and further away from God, and we don't even know it. So there has to be a concerted effort on our part to remove all that nonsense and all that clutter and find some order. Without order, there is no peace. So I realize I'm talking in circles, but the example of you trying to tell me the brown house is green, I have to have the ability. There is something within me, and I believe that's something to be the spiritual side, the God side of me, that says something about this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't taste right. It doesn't smell right. And the ability to go on those inner gut instincts instead of just believing everything you hear. And that's not to say that some of the things you hear won't be accurate, but there has to be that genuine seeking within you. There's a writing that says, seek and you'll find. I believe that. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to seek and find some things that are off a little bit. We're all on a journey. I know there are things in my life that in my 20s, I firmly believed. And as my life went on, as I examined, as I sought out truth more, I realized I was wrong about that. Something I always told my son, always be willing to be wrong. It's not that you are wrong. Just be willing to be wrong. Just be willing to say, I could be wrong about that, but for now, this is firmly what I believe. And again, balance is the key, because I also believe that once you find a truth, you hang on to it with everything you have, because there's always going to be forces that try to take that from you and steal that truth and steal that peace. Here's another green flag. I was talking about red flags. I hear people talk about red flags all the time. There are some green flags, and here's one of them. If you're following after a truth, if you're following after something and seeking after something and you find it, and it brings peace and it brings joy, then hang on to that. That's probably it. You have found it. And I cannot tell you how many times in my life I have thought something was true and just something inside of me thought, I don't know. It sounds right. It feels right, but something's off here. And those are the red flags. If you're seeing red flags, be alerted with good reason and start seeking, start pursuing, do everything you can to find the truth. And I believe you will find it, but you have to have that heart to seek. I wanted to take a look at something here on my notes. And again, this is unscripted. These are things that I want to talk to you about. So I like this show, Seinfeld. Pretty much watch the reruns, but there's an episode in there where Kramer tells George to listen to that little man inside. I believe that little man is in there. I believe that little man is God. We talk so much about seeking God, and we go to church and we listen to messages and preachers. And I think even the Bible, if we're not careful, the Bible or the Quran or whatever book we're seeking, and by the way, there are so many similarities among the different religions. I do believe in one truth and one God. In order to find that, though, I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the tools that we use to find that. I think you can make the Bible God, and the Bible is not God. God is. If you were seeking God only through the Bible, then you're not going to find him. If you'll learn about him, and again, I think I'd used the example before of if someone wrote a book about me and it had every single thing about my life in it, and they approached me and I needed help with something, and they approached me and said, hey, yes, I'll help. But I have over here my best friend who's never read the book, but he's walked my life with me. He's been there every step of the way. He remembers my childhood. He knows what I've been through. He's been there with me while I've went through those things that are written in the book. The person that I would prefer help me out in a moment of need will be the person that knows me, not the person that knows about me. So I want to encourage you to get to know God. Part of this conversation is to try to, maybe I just vomited out a bunch of words, but in all of those words and all of those concepts that I tried to bring up, the one that I wanted you to understand the most is that there is something in you it's that little voice, it's that little man in there saying, or woman that says, I'm here, I'm God, and I'm in here. I talking about the Bible and making it God. Look, it's not bad to learn about God, but know God, seek him out. Quick question, quick thought. We read about people in a book like the Bible, or the books that are in the Bible. Solomon, Moses, and how he stretched his cane out over the Red Sea and the waters parted. Elijah, we could talk about Noah and the ark and building an ark knowing that there was a flood coming. There was no Bible. There was nothing written down for those guys to go back and read and study and say, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm not suggesting we don't receive from books like this. What I'm saying is, let's think for a minute. Let's use common sense. Let's start realizing that there are things within us. I mean, man, if they didn't have a Bible and they were able to find God, they were able to know right from wrong, why can't we? And again, it's not about not using the Bible as a tool. It's not allowing the tool to become God. It's not allowing the tool, because I can tell you this right now. You can study any kind of writing you want, Quran, Bible, whatever it is, and 100 different people can give you 100 different interpretations for what those words on the pages are saying. So there are so many ways that you can be deceived when you don't find God, when you don't find that singularity, that single one thing that brings you to real truth and real peace. Again, I realize it's a journey, but the journey can be fun and enjoyable. And all I'm trying to do is get you to understand there is some inner workings that are, quite frankly, the key. They are the secret sauce to making your spaghetti taste wonderful. And don't discount that. That's all I'm saying. I have so much more I want to share, so much more I want to say. At some point, I would really like to get into discussions where I'm just answering questions based on my life's experiences, based on the things that I have found to be true. Be the person that can say, I have found this or that to be true, because finding the truth will bring peace. It will bring joy. I want to eventually go into how you overcome anxieties and how your brain and your thought processes are the real reason why we can't discover truth. I want to give you one quick example. It's a little bit morbid, but I like to watch these crime shows. I was watching a crime show, and there was a deceased person, someone who had been murdered, and I think it was 2020 or one of those shows. And the lady being interviewed was going on and on about how her sister's dead body was laying in a desert, and the cops had to leave it there overnight because they needed to go and, gather evidence and things of that nature. And the sister was like, well, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here because I don't want my sister to be alone. And the officer, of course, said, and the investigator said, well, you have to leave. You can't stay here. So they had to force her to leave. What I want to speak to is her understanding. Her truth was, my sister can't be alone. Well, your sister's dead. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but think about that. The mindset, and I see this a lot, and I realize there's a grieving process. I realize, look, this may not be something I could have told her, but I'm making a point. Your sister's not there. She's not in that body. She wouldn't know one way or the other whether you stayed all night or whether she laid there alone. That body laid there alone. She wouldn't know the difference. These people that make a big deal out of funerals, and I want him to wear this and I want him to wear that, and that was his favorite suit. Well, he don't care. That person doesn't care. That's truth. You can't deny that, but yet we create our own belief system. We create our own truth. Oh, hopefully the point's well made. But anyway, be encouraged. Hopefully this helps. Maybe I went a little longer than I normally do, but I really hope this helps. Be blessed, and until next time, have a great day.